Today we are going to deal with the Azure architecture design. Here, for taking the SVG pictures or icons, I have used the app.diagram.net, and in order to make a flowchart, I have used this app. We can use the visual paradigm in order to make the flowchart or how the things go. So now we'll use standard icons for each service available. So that could be taken from these website app diagram. So these are the basic one or the which Azure provides us. So now let's deal with the big architecture design. A big architecture design, it helps us to deal with the stuff like the data ingestion, then processing, then analysis of the data, and the analysis of a data actually takes place whether if a data is a large or a complex, then that data analysis we can do. So in the next diagram, how the things overflow, we will see that the data we take from the resources. It could be from the Microsoft Dynamics 365, and then we store the data, and afterwards a batch processing takes, and then the analysis of a data takes place, and then the reporting of a data. So here in the diagram, I have shown that big data solution typically involves one or more of the following type of workloads. So batch processing of the big data sources at a rest takes place, and then real-time processing of the data takes place. Then the interactive exploration of a data takes place, and then the predictive analysis of a data is done, and then the reporting of a data is done by using a machine learning or any other sources. Now let's see what is this. Data sources, all big data solutions start with one or more data sources. So the examples, it could be like we can take the data from the blob or Microsoft 365 as explained in our example or in the problem. So we will see how we have taken the data from the different sources as it happened with the STK company, which wants to upload the data to the Azure. Then the data storage, for like in order to process the data, it needs to be stored. So here often the options for implementing the storage include the Azure data lake or blob containers as which are available in the Azure storage. We take those things. Then batch processing, because data is very large, so it could be processed in a batches, and for this batch processing we usually use the files and processing them. Then we include the different analytic tools like Azure Data Lake Analytics, like using the high peak custom app reduce jobs. So for that kind of a processing, like for processing the data in a batches, we use a different resources. Then real-time ingestion, in message ingestion also happens in the data. Like if the solution includes a real-time source, the architecture must include a way to capture and store real-time messages from stream processing. So this might be a simple data store where incoming messages are dropped into the folder for processing. However, many solutions need a message ingestion store to act as a buffer for message. So how the messages would be handled, these things are handled here. So here Azure Event Hub, Azure IoT Hub, and Kafka, these kind of solutions that are looked in. Then afterwards the stream processing again happens, like the streaming of our data. After capturing the real-time messages, the solution must process them by filtering, aggregating, and then otherwise preparing the data for analysis. Afterwards, the analysis of a data happens, and then the reporting of a data happens. So this is the whole thing, like which you have batch processing data, real-time processing of a data, then interactive exploration, like how the data could be managed, and then the predictive analysis. So now for our program, like problem, we would be taking the log files, and then we would be using some kind of a structure and then data ingestion would take, then we'll store the data, then we would be analyzing the data, and for storing the data we would be preparing and training the data, then we would be using the Cosmos database, like for NoSQL database, and for presentation of a data we use a, like for analysis we use a Power BI here, and for because the data is in the form which could be converted into a NoSQL, so here we use a Azure Cosmos, and then web application system is used. So if I explain like how the things could be done, so here what happens, and that yeah, so how the data flow would happen. So what I'll do, like here first of all we will be bringing all together all the structured or unstructured and semi-structured data in a the log files, media, then that data sources which we have we would be using, we explained here. Like in our case, as it is mentioned, we would be taking the data from the SAP, Oracle, then Dynamic 365 and CSV and the blob files. So afterwards, data ingestion would take place. So here, what would happen, that the Azure Data Explorer or Data Management System, which helps for data ingestion, that would be taken into account. And here, what I have done, uh, basically, here I have used the data lake, Azure data. This is a symbol of a data lake. And this is a event grid. This is a event hub, and then this is a IoT hub. So, what is a data ingestion? So data ingestion actually is a process which is used to load the data records from one or more sources to import the data into a table in Azure Data Explorer. Once ingested, data becomes available for query. So here, as I have explained, like I have used a different pipelines. So ingestion using a managed pipelines. So Azure Data Factory, like if I explain this, a fully managed data integration service for analytic workload in Azure takes place. Azure Data Factory connects with over 90 supported sources to provide efficient and resilient data transfer. And here the data storage. For this, I have used the tables, then disk I have used, and for this thing, I have even used the data bricks kind of a thing. No, here the thing is, like for preparation of a data, I use the data brick, but as of in this model, for this one, the Azure like data storage, I use a data lake, and then I have used a file and then table and a disk one. Then preparation for that I have used the data brick kind of a thing. So why I have used the data brick? Because Databrick is a data analytics platform which is optimized for Microsoft Azure cloud services. Azure Databrick offers three environments for developing data intense application: Databrick SQL, Databrick Science, and Engineering, Databrick Machine Learning. So Databrick SQL, if we say, provides a easy to use platform for analysis who want to run the SQL queries on their data lake and create a multiple visualization type to explore the query results from a different perspectives and build and share dashboards. Next, the data analysis happened. So for this data analysis, what I did, I just use a Azure Synapse apps an analytic tool, and for visualization of the data preparation I use a Power BI. So this is icon of a Power BI, and afterwards I presented the data by using the web application, and here here if you see, I have used the Cosmos DB. So the main motive to use a Cosmos DB, because today's applications are required to highly be responsive and always online to achieve low latency and high availability. Instances of these applications needs to be deployed in a data center that are close to their users. So application needs to respond in a real time. So afterwards, I use the AI tools. So for this, I use the AI cognitive services, AI machine learning, Azure bot services to handle the data. So in nutshell, if I say that how the data flow is happening. So first of all, bring together all the structured, unstructured, and semi-structured data, log files, media, like using a Microsoft 365 pipeline, and by using all pipeline, and then store the data and use Apache or Spark pools to clean the data, train the things, and transform the structureless data and combine them into a structured data from operational database or warehouse. Then use a scalable machine learning or deep learning techniques to drive the deeper sites from this data using a Python, Scala, or any other language, whichever you want to prefer. Then query, then present the data in some kind of a report, or and you can use for visualization of a data, like after preparing you can use the Power BI, but afterwards we do analysis and then we present the data, and then take the insights from the Apache Spark pool to the Cosmos DB to make them accessible through the web application. Because if we prepare and train the data and then visualize it, and then we would be like analyzing this, and then it could be presented in some visual format. So here we would be like using some kind of a visual format in the JSON and format, so that afterwards we would be using this kind of a data in the web applications or in the mobile apps, and then after applying the AI tools, we would be like converting that data into some kind of a useful uh, kind of a tool which we can use later on. So here is the final design. So the main motive of ours was to design a data, like to design a company so which wants to upload the data. Like here, as it was mentioned, we have to take a SAP or Oracle and Microsoft 365 data, or from any blob and storage device, and afterwards we have to like ingest the data here, and then we have to do an analysis. And for that, as I have mentioned, for analysis part, for ingestion data, I use a data factory, and for storage, I use a data lake, and then for preparing the data, I use Azure Databricks, and then for modeling or analysis part, I use a what you can say Azure Synapse Analytics, and then for visualizing, I use a Power Brick, and then I use Azure Cosmos DB for the final presentation, and AI tool for displaying for analysis of the data. So thank you so much. So this is the link of my file, so one can access it. Thank you so much.